and welcome viewers. I'm Pia and you're watching the China Report on NewsX World. On that note, let's take a look at news making headlines this hour. Public anger has grown as residents have mourned more than 128 victims of a deadly blaze at a high-rise in Hong Kong, while Beijing has warned against using the tragedy to stir unrest. Grieving communities pushed for answers as frustration over safety and accountability has intensified. According to reports, China's military and Coast Guard have conducted patrols around Scarborough Shoal in order to safeguard sovereignty and maritime rights, as Beijing claims. The Philippine embassy in Beijing has not responded yet to a request for any comments. China has created a dedicated commercial space department under the CNSA to regulate and support its booming private space industry. The move aims to foster high-quality growth, integrate the sector into national strategy, and strengthen safety and coordination by 2027. Taiwan plans to acquire Israeli takeover technology for a counter-drone system to protect airports, power plants, and other critical infrastructure. The system can jam, spoof, and seize drones using advanced methods outlined by the NCSIST. A Russian missile strike hit Vishnu Road, killing one person and injuring 5, according to regional emergency services. Firefighters battled burning buildings as residents evacuated. Activists in New York City protested near a GSA lot to stop ICE from departing for an immigration raid. President Trump has increased officer deployments nationwide, though most of those detained have no criminal convictions. Venezuela has denounced U.S. President Donald Trump's call to close its airspace, calling it a colonialist threat and a violation of international law. Trump has stated that all flights above and around the country should be considered closed in its entirety. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un marked the Air Force's 87th and 80th anniversary with his daughter, emphasizing its role in nuclear deterrence. He toured aircraft displays, including drones and missile launchers, and pledged new strategic assets. Well, viewers, those were the headlines and our top focus. Anger continues to grow over the blaze at the Wang Fuk Court housing complex, which has claimed at least 128 lives, with more than 150 people still missing at the moment. The fire, which broke out on the 28th of November, engulfed 7 high-rise blocks in Taipo. Investigation is underway, focusing on potential corruption and unsafe materials used in recent renovations. Now, authorities have arrested 11 individuals in connection with the incident, but there are growing calls for an independent probe and greater accountability from the government. Meanwhile, China's national security authorities have warned individuals against using the disaster to disrupt peace in the city. The fire alarms in the complex reportedly failed to work, and residents have raised concerns about hazards related to ongoing renovations. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Andrew K.P. Leung. He is a strategist focusing on the Chinese economy and policy. He's joining us from Hong Kong. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. First up, my condolences for the 128 lives that have been lost. Of course, a probe into this is underway. The Chinese government has emphasized that it's going to be tightening regulations and also chalk out fresh plans that contractors will have to oblige with from now on. But it's not just a short-term solution, because these problems have been persisting for quite a while now. A long-term commitment by contractors to strengthen the manner in which they function is what is of priority at the moment. We do know that anger is simmering to a certain extent amongst the people who are demanding answers, demanding transparency as far as the probe is concerned. How do you think the government should now proceed from here?
Well, this epic catastrophe has attracted the highest level of concern and attention and condolences, of course, from across the world, including the Pope, including King Charles, including many heads of state, but also attracted the attention of the authorities in Beijing because there are many high rises throughout China. And in fact, this is a phenomenon not peculiar to China, but to other countries around the world. Um, so it's a question of to what extent fire safety standards are adhered to or are adequate, whether this fire equipment are adequately in place and regularly maintained, whether the properties management authorities or management committees are doing their job, whether the fire equipment used is up to the height expected in case of emergency, whether there is sufficient access to for these five service vehicles at the press of a button, whether there is sufficient water pressure to enable the water jets to reach those heights. So there are many questions to be answered. On the one hand, there is an outpouring of grief in Hong Kong. Also, there is also an outpouring of solidarity as people, volunteers, and various businesses are donating money amounting to now nearly $1 billion Hong Kong dollars and counting. Um, on the one hand, there is this outpouring of sympathy and support, but on the other, there are many questions that remain unanswered. Of course, the government is conducting departmental investigations. And it's always a question whether the departmental investigations are adequate, because there could be questions about standards are up to their expectations with the modern high rises, whether the materials defined in those standards are sufficiently fire retardant. So it's a question not only of enforcement, but also of the standards themselves, of regulations, so whether they need to be reviewed. The Hong Kong government is coming to grips into it, but on the other hand, there is no doubt there is increasing sort of boiling of some public anger. At the same time, there is also outpouring of solidarity amongst the communities.
Absolutely. A quick follow-up to that. We do know there have been 11 people who have been arrested by authorities as of now with regards to the renovation that was taking place in these high-rises. But I also wanted to understand from you, since you have been tracking what's taking place very, very closely, is corruption really prevalent in this sector? Does it then have a direct bearing with the fire that claimed so many lives, or is what's taken place simply going to turn into some sort of blame game?
Well, there are a number of issues involved here. These blocks, there are 8 high-rise blocks involving a total of nearly 2,000 units, representing, of course, 2,000 families. And these blocks are separated by a narrow space, but they're under renovation. They're all covered by kind of tarpaulin or various screens. It's a question whether these tarpaulin and screens are up to fire retardant regulations. And even though certain tests are performed on some of the samples, whether that test could apply to the entirety of these materials used. And of course, the blame lies primarily on the contractors themselves. And that's why all the management, the top management representing this particular company had now been arrested and charged for manslaughter. But on the other hand, there is also the question whether the regulations themselves need to be reviewed, and whether, of course, there is sufficient fire fighting equipment and access to larger firefighting vehicles in the kind of narrow streets characterize many congested cities, including Hong Kong. So there are indeed a number of other questions that need to be answered, and the government is coming to grips with them.
Indeed, sir, requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking further updates as far as this tragic blaze and the aftermath is concerned. We're now learning that a Hong Kong University student, Miles Kwan, has now been arrested after launching an online petition demanding an independent investigation into the deadly fire at the Wang Fuk Court housing complex. Kwan, who is distributing flyers, called for improvements to prevent future disasters. Local media reports say that he was detained by National Security Police for suspicion of sedition. The petition, which garnered significant support, outlined 4 key demands, including a probe into the causes of the fire. Listen in to what Miles has stated.
而呢啲嘅情緒、呢啲嘅嬲、呢啲嘅唔開心、呢啲嘅惋惜，其實我覺得唔可以淨係局喺心入邊。呢啲嘅情緒要俾大家知道，大家係同樣地憤怒，大家同樣地唔開心，大家同樣地為呢個地方變成咁樣而覺得好唔開心，而真係想改進。係啦，我相信係改進嘅，我哋係需要去改進。我哋要嘅就係真係好確實嘅一啲承諾。我哋例如係要安置居民，係真係確實咁樣去承諾，係真係望清楚呢一件事背後係咪有好嚴重、好即係好即係好交錯嘅力喺度，然後令到啲人禍突然發生。我哋要政府承諾嘅係，佢唔係淨係解決咗一次意外就算，佢真係要去預防呢啲意外。而當咁多人已經係面臨災難，好多人面臨創傷死難嘅時候，其實我哋仲要花心力去講、去揣摩邊啲嘢講得唔講得。然後我哋見到我哋嘅官員亦都唔係花緊心力喺呢個災難上面嘅時候，我覺得我哋係唔應該再忍落去，我哋要真係誠實咁面對自己感受，並且俾啲感受出嚟。如果呢啲嘅意見都係煽動或者係踩緊佢底線嘅話，咁我覺得我已經唔可以再預示任何嘅後果，只能夠做自己真誠地相信。
Stay with us on the broadcast is Mr. Andrew K.P. Leung. We've just heard what the student had to say. He, in fact, opened by stating and claiming that what took place, the tragedy that took place, is a man-made disaster. I wanted to understand from you, in context of his arrest, does a petition really constitute sedition? As he's just stated at the moment, the focus should be on just tackling the aftermath of this disaster, finding out what really happened, rather than being worried about what someone can say or not say, and quashing demands for accountability.
Well, of course, Hong Kong has always been a city of open petitions and also dissent. But the current dynamics have been unfortunately infected by the past so-called umbrella movement and the kind of anti-government, anti-Beijing protests in the past, and also tinged with a degree of foreign intervention. The so-called riots that disrupted Hong Kong's peace and stability, that led to the enactment of the national security law. Beijing was actually forced into enacting such law because of the huge disruption of social order and the direct challenge of Beijing's sovereignty over the territory. But as far as this particular case is concerned, I'm not familiar with the background of the student, because in spite of the dying down of the protests, there are still remnant elements associated with this movement. So I'm not familiar with that. But on the other hand, I think that the government is facing increasing demands for looking into the rules and regulations. And as I mentioned, various other aspects, the management of these housing estates, whether they are up to the job, and for example, fire alarms are not working, and so why, and whether or not there is sufficient the rules and standards are really up to date. So I think the government is coming to grips with it. But as far as this particular student is concerned, unfortunately, it is I'm not familiar with the background of the student. But ultimately, of course, the government has got to be aware of these elements that remain that could use this opportunity to disrupt social stability.
Indeed, Beijing is concerned of this spiraling out of control. With that said, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your analysis of what's taken place, and of course, thoughts are with those who are grieving at the moment. On that note, viewers, we're shifting focus to further developments that we're tracking from the South China Sea. We're now learning that tensions are rising. China has stated that its Coast Guard and military has patrolled the Scarborough Shoal. At the moment, the Philippine Coast Guard has disputed this particular claim. Now, local media reports that Beijing says the patrols aim to safeguard China's sovereignty and maritime rights. However, Philippine officials say that Chinese ships had ignored radio challenges from Philippine vessels. Now, Scarborough Shoal lies within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, that is within 200 nautical miles from its territory. But China has laid claim to it. Beijing has also planned to set up a nature reserve over there, raising fears of further militarization. In fact, former Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpeo has stated that this mirrors China's actions on Fiery Cross and Mischief Reefs as well as the Subi Reef. He has warned that the nature reserve could be used to justify monitoring and also build up military presence. China, we all know, does not recognize the 2016 Hague Tribunal ruling, which invalidates its claims upon the area. This is, of course, under the UN clause. This is the latest that we are tracking on the broadcast. Interestingly, these patrols have come after joint tripartite drills between the United States and Japan and Philippines that were held just last week. The USS Nimitz aircraft carrier had led those particular drills that had taken place. We do know that China has, in a way, responded to the muscle flexing led by the US, Japan and Philippines through these particular patrols. What's interesting is that the Philippine embassy in Beijing has not released any sort of statement with regards to these developments. There was a request for comment, but there was no response made as far as that is concerned. Earlier, of course, there were about 9 warships, patrol cutters by the 3 countries, US, Japan and Philippines. This is, of course, we know the Scarborough Shoal has been a disputed maritime feature. It's been a flashpoint of tensions, especially between Beijing and Philippine forces. I did mention that there was a ruling back in 2016 by the Court of Arbitration at The Hague, which did not recognize China's claims under the UN clause. But as of now, we do know that Chinese vessels have now patrolled this particular area. As far as previous week's drills are concerned by the US, Japan and Philippines, we've learned that it's a 2-day joint patrol and exercises that were carried out. The aircraft carrier of the US, the USS Nimitz, had led the fleet. Its destroyers, USS Wayne Mayer, USS Gridley, USS Lena Sutcliffe Higbee, were all joined by Japanese destroyer JS Akebono and the Philippine Navy flagship BRP Jose Rizal, as well as a frigate BRP Antonio Luna. There were also Philippine Coast Guard cutters that were involved. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us from Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We're, of course, tracking the latest patrols that have been made by Chinese ships around the Scarborough Shoal. I've just informed our viewers that this follows the tripartite drills that were held between the United States, Japan and Philippines last week itself. Do you think what China is doing, the muscle flexing that it's engaging in at the moment, is sort of a response to the drills that were held earlier?
Indeed, China want to build the artificial island in Scarborough Shoal, and this is very strong desire. Because without the Scarborough Shoal, China's plan to build a fortress in the South China Sea will not become complete. Because you can see in the map, there is 2 places China has already built the artificial island, which is a Paracel Island and Spratly Island. Yes. But this looks like one line, and so each fortress is isolated. But if China establishes a fortress in the Scarborough Shoal, they can create a 3 point, like a triangle, and deploy the forces from these islands, they can create something, the sacred place of the triangle. This is the area of the fortress, and China can deploy anything within this triangle as a sacred place safely. So in this case, China can deploy nuclear ballistic missile submarine, and after they build this fortress, and if the US or Philippines try to intervene in this situation, China can say any move in this place could be the nuclear war. So that's why no one can touch this place. But without the Scarborough Shoal, this fortress is not complete, just one line and isolated fortress. So this means that all of the artificial island is nearly meaningless. So that's why they have the strong desire to build the artificial island Scarborough Shoal. But without pushing out the Philippines intervention or US intervention in Scarborough Shoal, they cannot build artificial islands. That's why they try to patrol again and again, try to hide the construction material side of Scarborough Shoal and try to build artificial island within the short period that is planned repeatedly they try to do. But the Philippines every time prevent it. Indeed, in the past, more bigger move has happened in this place. That was Obama age, sending the big ship to the Scarborough Shoal, China did. And in this case, this ship carrying the many material to build the artificial island. But that time, U.S. fighter plane tried to fly very low above this ship and warned this ship, if this ship going further, they will sink it. So that's why this ship turning back to China. So now repeatedly the crash has happened in the Scarborough Shoal, but still China hasn't got enough level of the security in the Scarborough Shoal. That's why they failed to build artificial island.
Indeed, but what's interesting is that you've pointed out towards the build-up, there are satellite images that exist with regards to what's taking place at the Mischief Reef, at the Fiery Cross Reef as well, which is an atoll, at the Subi Reef. We've seen an airstrip come up as well, and not just the naval build-up. But Scarborough Shoal is interesting because there was a ruling back in 2016 by the Court of Arbitration under the UN clause which did not recognize China's claims to this particular area. It outrightly stated and outrightly recognized Philippine sovereignty, considering the fact that the Scarborough Shoal lies within 200 nautical miles of the Philippine territory, which is exclusively in its EEZ. Then how could China then justify doing this?
Justification is simple. Just ignore the international law, then they can claim it. That's all. So in this case, this kind of the claim itself is not so important because China can change any time. Important thing is the needs for the military purpose. But in this case, other island you mentioned is the southern edge of the South China Sea. And Paracel Island is western edge of the South China Sea. Now we are talking about Scarborough Shoal, which is the eastern edge of the South China Sea. So west, south, and east. If they create the artificial island in the South China Sea, it will cover whole edge of the South China Sea. That's why this Scarborough Shoal is the last place China want to complete this fortress. To whole of the South China Sea, China is claiming, and whole of the South China Sea should be the fortress in front of the coastal city of China. So that's why they try to take it. But without the east edge of the South China Sea, which is the Scarborough Shoal, China cannot build the fortress in the South China Sea. Only western edge, only southern edge is not fortress to defend China from the South China Sea. So that's why they try to build the eastern edge, try to build the artificial island in the eastern edge, which is the Scarborough Shoal.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some further developments, this time from Taiwan. We're now learning that Taiwan plans to acquire Israeli takeover technology as part of a counter-drone network. This has sparked a debate over its use and the island's security strategy. Now, the country is looking to keep pace with the rapidly evolving threat posed by unmanned vehicles. The system, which is separate from military programs, aims to protect critical infrastructure such as airports and power plants. It includes technology that can jam, spoof, and even seize control of drones, landing them safely using hacking methods. The government-owned National Chung-Shan Institute of Science and Technology has already outlined the necessary specifications for this particular system. Still with us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao. Interesting development, Taiwan looking at integrating the drone seizure capabilities to enhance the defensive civilian infrastructure. It plans to keep this particular program separate from its military infrastructure. How effective, in your assessment, would this be in countering the asymmetric threat, especially from China?
Drone-related technology is dual-use technology. So
Yes.
even if this is civil purpose, of course, militarily this is important. And recently, the drone is main weapon in the war. And it has started since 2020. Azerbaijan and Armenia, now Russia and Ukraine. Every time drone is very cheap and useful precision missiles against enemy. So that's why this is a game-changing weapon. And but this drone has a weak point because
All right, I will try to get Dr. Nagao back into the broadcast, but of course, this is a very crucial plan. This is Israeli takeover technology that Taiwan plans to integrate into its civil defense system. Remember, this is going to be separate from the military infrastructure that Taiwan has. But as Dr. Nagao was pointing out, of course, drones are dual-use technology. We've seen the sort of hybrid warfare increase, particularly in the Russia-Ukraine war and the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict as well. Unmanned aerial vehicles are increasingly being used. Taiwan, of course, has concerns as far as its national security is concerned. There are analysts that have been pointing out that due to China's increasing frequency of patrolling of the incursions into the median line, Taiwan must bolster up its defenses. But of course, at the moment, the National Chung-Shan Institute of Science and Technology, Taiwan's top weapons developer, has stated that it must possess decoding functions for OcuSync versions 2, 3, 4 and 4+, which is the drone transmission system used by DJI. There, of course, the DJI is a mainland Chinese company. It accounts for an estimated 70 to 75% of global civilian drone market, including in Taiwan. Now, this has, of course, prompted concern that the government is now tailoring specifications around a single commercial brand. Questions over whether decoding DJI's encrypted links was technologically feasible have also cropped up. So in light of all of that, Taiwan now plans to acquire Israeli takeover technology as part of a counter-drone network. This is, of course, set off a lot of debate over its use and, of course, the larger security strategy, the larger security apparatus that the island plans to bolster to keep pace with rapidly evolving unmanned threats. Shifting focus to further updates, China's burgeoning private space sector has received a major boost with the establishment of a dedicated government body, signaling Beijing's strong commitment to supporting and managing the industry's rapid growth. The China National Space Administration, that's the CNSA, has recently announced the formation of the Commercial Space Department, which will serve as the specialized regulator for all commercial space activities. This new office is a significant step towards fostering the sector's high-quality development and benefiting the entire supply chain. China's commercial space industry has seen historic expansion driven by government policies, technological advances, and growing market demand, with over 600 private space-related enterprises currently operating. Alongside this, the CNSA has unveiled an action plan for promoting the high quality and safe development of commercial space, aiming to integrate the sector into China's broader national space strategy. By 2027, the country aims to create a more coordinated and efficient commercial space ecosystem, strengthening safety in research and manufacturing, and further support its ambition to become a powerful space nation. Now, the developments, North Korean President Kim Jong-un has highlighted the Air Force's role in exercising nuclear war deterrence as he celebrated the North Korean Air Force's 80th anniversary along with his daughter. North Korea has launched mass production of small, short-range, first-person view drones as well as larger, medium-range battlefield attack drones. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un has stated that the country's expectations for the Air Force, which will play a role in the exercise of nuclear war deterrence, are truly great. He's also stated that the Air Force should resolutely repulse and control all sorts of espionage acts and possible military provocations. He's added that it would be given new strategic assets without elaborating on what exactly these constitute. Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, it's a wrap on the China Report. We will continue to track all of these updates very, very closely. On that note, a quick short break.